Welcome, my statistics students. It's Professor Bedrero, and just wanted to share a little video with you for some tips for the final project. Okay, um, let me start off with a couple of reminders. You need to do two different confidence intervals or hypothesis tests per member of your group, and your final project should include at least one confidence interval and at least one hypothesis test. And when we say different, that means they come from different sections of the text. So a group of 2 students will need at least 4 different confidence intervals hypothesis tests, and a group of 3 students will need 6 different confidence intervals or hypothesis tests. And note that you do not need to reject H0 as the conclusion for it to count as a test. Sometimes in real life we get a fail to reject H0 and we did all the work. So that would count. If you get a fail to reject H0, just give the proper conclusion. To make sure that they cover all their requirements, many groups find it helpful to list the different confidence intervals and hypothesis tests by section. So for example, we'll do a 1 prop Zn on the proportion of blank, and that comes from section blank. Okay. And then they make sure that they have 4 or 6 different sections, 6 different sections covered. Okay, and remember that for proportions, we're dealing with binomial data, so you'll need to specify what a success is. And t-intervals and t-tests deal with ratio, although you can get away with interval level data, and they need a sample mean and sample standard deviation. And you can use your data strategically. So if you wanted to, you can combine all your data and then do 1 sample confidence intervals and hypothesis tests, and then break it into parts, so maybe female versus male, or whatever your 2 groups are, and then compare the 2 against each other doing confidence intervals and hypothesis tests. That would be different sections, so different tests. So for example, you could do a 1 sample t-interval on the number of hours slept for all genders, and then break it apart, male versus female, and do a 2 sample t-test on the number of hours slept and compare men and women. And that would count as 2 different intervals or tests. Okay. Also, your project needs to have at least 1 graph, and that graph needs to be professional looking. So it should be computer generated. Feel free to use Excel sheets or an online app to make it. And as always, don't forget to include scales and labels. So here's a rough outline of what the report should look like. You should have an introduction where you tell about the topic and why you chose it, how you gathered your data and if there might be any possible biases, and then analyze your data. So I'll give a summary of the confidence intervals and hypothesis tests, but please do not say push the on button, then go to the stat menu, then push the test submenu. That's rather boring. Okay. And finally, a conclusion summarizing your results. So here's an excerpt of what might appear in a report. So we decided to test if there was a difference in population 1 and population 2 for whatever characteristic or measurement we're taking. A sample of N1 from population 1 had a mean of X1 bar and a standard deviation of S1. An independent random sample from population 2 had a mean of X2 bar and a standard deviation of S2. We ran a 2 sample t-test, and here are null and alternate hypotheses, and we chose a 5% level of significance. The test statistic was blank with a p-value of blank, and since p-value greater than, less than alpha, and then give our real world conclusion. Okay. All right, for the presentation, normally we do this in class, but we're gonna have you do a video. So you'll upload a link to the video once it's completed. I would recommend that you make a presentation, maybe in PowerPoint or slides or something similar, that summarizes your report. It should be informative and interesting and include the basics of the confidence intervals and hypothesis tests, including your real world interpretation. And I would recommend that you practice a few times before recording. Okay. So you could record it in Zoom. So after you get your presentation complete, you can open up Zoom. So zoom.us is the website. And it's best if you do this on a computer, not a phone. And then you can use the control menu to share a screen. So here's the share right here. And also, if you click the more, it leads you to a record option. So if you click the new share, it will bring up a window like this, and it'll show you all your open windows. And then you'll want to select the one that has your presentation open in the view. Okay, and then hit share. And then once that's ready to go, come over here to more and hit the record. You can even pause or stop the recording and restart the recording. And when you're done recording the video, make sure that you go ahead and click the end meeting here. It will then process the video, and once it's done, it'll create a file for you, which you can then upload, say, to YouTube or someplace, and then just make sure that you send me the link. And lastly, just want to remind you that, yes, we can do hard things.